It's Monday, which means another Mock Draft Monday here on the Bengal YouTube channel. We only have a few more of these. We got the draft coming up in April, obviously, this month, the 25th. Today's the 8th. You do the math. Not many more of these. And of course, I will be live here on YouTube for the NFL Draft, like always, Thursday night, the 25th of April. Should be fun. Always a ton of fun to hang out with you guys and react to the chaos that is the NFL Draft. We are going to be surprised on draft night. I'm very interested to find out how. And in this draft, we are maybe going to be accounting for some of that. Of course, I would love for you guys to join me for that draft stream like always. Make sure to check out the channel. But this one, I will be making a little bit of some changes from the last ones. However, some things stay the same. Caleb Williams goes at number 1 overall. We expect this to happen. We almost know it's going to happen at this point. Justin Fields gets traded. You know, some scouts maybe don't love Drake May or Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy. Who is the real QB 2 or 3 or 4? Doesn't matter. Caleb Williams, it seems like to everybody, is QB 1. I think Drake May's in that conversation. I'm a huge Drake May fan. He just didn't play with a ton of great talent around him in 2023, and of course didn't have a great year, and I think that kind of brings people down on him, but he's still a great prospect, still super young. And that being said, with the 2nd overall pick, I'm going to go Jaden Daniels from LSU. I still think Drake May is definitely in play to be the 2nd quarterback off the board. Just seems like his hype is dying down a little bit. Some question marks are arising with how teams maybe perceive him. And it's a lot of speculation at this point, right? It is. But Jaden Daniels is in that QB2 conversation and could be the 2nd pick here in the draft. He's obviously quite a good athlete, great straight line speed, and an arm that loves to push the ball down the field. Now, it's not top-tier arm talent and arm strength, but still pretty good, and it's exceptional accuracy down the field. You look at the way Cliff Kingsbury worked with Kyler Murray in Arizona. A lot of deep throws, maybe not so many throws over the middle. That sounds like the LSU offense. Of course, you'd hit hitches and things outside the numbers as well. But the LSU offense wasn't really going over the middle too much. And you could see Jaden Daniels just going straight into the Cliff Kingsbury offense, where Cliff has worked with that before, Murray being a smaller quarterback. Jaden Daniels is not small in terms of height, but, you know, didn't really push the ball over the middle all that much, wasn't really asked to. Is that a function of the offense? Is that because he can't do it? I think it's probably more of a function of the offense, but we'll see. There's a learning curve from a college offense to an NFL offense, but the Cliff Kingsbury offense might not be too big of a change for Jaden Daniels, so I think it's a good fit either way. But I think Drake May would also be a very good fit. I don't really think it's going to be JJ McCarthy, despite what the hype is saying right around now. But I do think in that scenario, Drake May goes at number 3 overall. Still think he's so great. I think he's in that conversation as QB1 in this draft. Of course, a lot of that comes down to development and overall situation. Scheme and personnel around you matters just as much, if not more, than individual talent sometimes. And we've seen that in the NFL lately. And who knows? If Patrick Mahomes goes to the Bears back in 2017 and Mitch Trubisky ends up on the Chiefs, who knows what ends up happening? I think in that scenario, you'd think Mahomes rises above it because he's so naturally talented. But he also got the benefit of working with not only a really great situation, but a fantastic offensive mind in Andy Reid. Who knows if his development is derailed if he goes to Chicago, where quarterbacks have gone to die. I don't know, but we'll have to see what happens. I wouldn't say New England is a great spot to be right now, so I would hope that Drake May is capable of overcoming that if he ends up being the 3rd overall pick. But I really love him as a player. Great athlete. Again, you can say that of a lot of these quarterbacks. It's a more athletic position than ever. He's got a great arm. He's able and capable of making some unbelievable plays. And you guys really need to check out Drake May if you haven't already. I know it's obvious he's one of the top QBs in the draft. We've heard his name for so long up to this point. But I'm telling you, even if you're not able to get all 22, go watch some highlights and just have a good time watching Drake May. His top tier play is as good as any player in this entire draft. Love him as a player. And then at number 4, after 3 straight quarterbacks, I'm going to make it 4. We expect the Vikings to be, in the conversation as one of the teams that wants to move up. And when they acquired the 23rd overall pick from Houston, from Cleveland, they put themselves in a really good position to do that. And maybe it's not 11 and 23 straight up for number 4, Maybe the Cardinals throw in number 104. They still have so many picks in the top 100. Now you add an extra first-round pick in the mix. That's pretty good. Monty Osenfort did a great job last year moving down with the Texans, who moved up for Will Anderson Jr. at number 3. And then the Cardinals moved back up for their guy in Paris Johnson Jr., who they might have taken at number 3 anyway. I think maybe you see some similar wheeling and dealing from Arizona this year as well. But the Vikings are going to move up for this pick here. And why Arizona over the Chargers? Well, I think it comes down to this, that you're going to have a lot of teams wanting to move up. The asking price of number 4 is probably going to be significant, right? Who can actually match that? Well, maybe the Giants, because you don't have to move back very much. The Broncos are in a tough spot because they don't have a second-round pick this year. So you'd be trading your first in this year's draft, plus your first next year, plus maybe something even down the line as well. It's a lot to give up, and I'm not sure that they're going to be able to match what the Vikings or Giants would offer. And we'll have to see. Obviously, it's a lot of speculation. We don't really know, but I think the Vikings are certainly in play to move up for one of these two picks. And I think there's a chance that the Cardinals are actually the team that ends up trading down and getting multiple picks like they did last year. So it's going to be 4 straight QBs. You don't move up for a receiver probably in this spot with all that. You move up for your QB of the future, and there's a non-zero chance it's J.J. McCarthy going to the Vikings here inside the top 5. As crazy as that sounds, it's becoming a reality, it would seem. The Vikings went out. They traded for that 23rd overall pick. In theory, we think to prepare to move up for a top pick to get a QB. I can understand the skepticism around J.J. McCarthy. Of course, you have people on all ends of the spectrum that, oh, J.J. McCarthy is national champion. He's going to end up being the best quarterback in this class. And then you have the people on the complete other end of the spectrum that say, oh, J.J. McCarthy stinks. Don't like him. Not going to be good. You have these QBs at the top throw the ball, 40-plus times a game sometimes. You'd be lucky to see J.J. McCarthy throw the ball 30 times in a game. It's happened, but it's a rarity, right? So there's a smaller sample size in a run-heavy offense, but offenses in college, any team, they're not trying to build up a great prospect. They're trying to win games any way they can. And when you have a great offensive line that can run the ball down teams' throats, you don't have to pass. You don't have to. And they didn't all that much. But McCarthy still made plays when he needed to. And even if you don't like J.J. McCarthy, it is brain dead to say, he's going to be available in the 3rd round. Why would we ever take him here? That's never happening. There are no nevers with the NFL draft. Anything can happen, really. And I think JJ does probably end up going inside the top 10 or even higher. And the Vikings make sense here, moving up to number 4. He's going to such a great situation if this ends up happening. You got Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1 probably in the NFL. Jordan Addison had a great rookie year. TJ Hawkinson, when he gets back from injury, one of the best tight ends in the league. And their offensive line is really, really nice, especially with their tackles. Brian O'Neill at right tackle, Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, Kevin O'Connell calling plays. I think this is a great, great situation to jump into. And if you told me, based on play caller and offensive pieces around each quarterback here in the top 4, McCarthy's going to probably the best situation. Maybe the Bears, now that they got Keenan Allen. You traded for DJ Moore, obviously, but the Vikings might be number 1 there. Bears might be number 2. So McCarthy could end up having the best rookie season of all of these QBs because the situation is so good there in Minnesota, in my opinion. Chargers on the clock at number 5. It'd be very tempting to take one of the receivers here. It's almost like, how do you not? You have such a big need at wide receiver. How do you not take one? Well, I think the Chargers could just totally opt to build into the trenches and take an offensive lineman here. I'm going to have a really tough time passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's available. Of course, you trade away Keenan Allen, you cut Mike Williams. You only have Josh Palmer under contract for 2024, and that's it. Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis are wide receiver 1 and 2 for 2025 as things stand right now. I think you have to go out and get a receiver. Now, it's a great receiver class. You don't necessarily need to do that at number 5. But with Marvin Harrison Jr. available, I think it'd be a pretty weird decision not to. It's a great offensive line class as well, but that also means you can still wait, especially when we see those guys get developed down the board as well as they do. I think MHJ makes, perfect sense to be the selection here at number 5. And that brings up the Giants at number 6. Now, Malik Neighbors has had some stuff come out lately that maybe he's got some character concerns. That's in regards to being arrested on Bourbon Street for unlicensed possession of a firearm. That's maybe a red flag. Now, I think charges were later dropped. Didn't even hear about this until recently. But maybe that pushes Neighbors down the board just a little bit. Maybe a bunch of teams feel really good about him. Maybe some teams don't. You hear that maybe teams worry about him going to a big city. And you hear that all the time. And it does actually impact falls. And if you're in that first tier of wide receivers, it's Marvin Harrison Jr., it's Malik Neighbors, and it's Rome Odunze. If one has some type of problem you don't feel comfortable with, maybe you opt to take the other one. We're going to go Rome Odunze here at number 6 overall, and you really can't go wrong here. Neighbors is so explosive, can win down the field, is excellent after the catch. Rome Odunze is a technician as a route runner with size. He can absolutely obliterate press. He's got tremendous body control and hands. It's just a different flavor of receiver here. What do you want? They're both very, very good. Rome Odunze maybe ends up being the cleaner prospect with everything considered. How much do we weigh the Neighbor stuff? It's not as bad, it would seem, as the T'Vondre Sweat stuff when he is arrested under suspicion of DUI a couple days ago. What are we doing here? Like, not only is that stupid, but it's especially double stupid in April, draft month. Brain dead. Very, very disappointing. But Odunze ends up being the pick there for me at number 6. Titans at number 7. I don't really have a reason to change this. It's Joe Alt for me until it's not. Joe Alt may be the best tackle in the draft. The Titans need left tackle desperately. And yes, I know Neighbors is here now. Maybe that changes things. But you bring in Calvin Ridley. You don't necessarily need to do anything crazy. Just take arguably the best player available and at a major position of need, left tackle taken care of for the foreseeable future. At number 8, have the Atlanta Falcons. And this is where things can get interesting because Neighbors is on the board, right? Laiatu Latu would be interesting here. If he is completely medically cleared, he could be a top 10 pick. He, in my opinion, is the best edge rusher in the class. I do think Dallas Turner ends up going ahead of him. But it seems like Latu might be edge 1 on the Falcons board. Does a team move up? And that's where I think we get to here with the Cardinals, because the Bears could certainly end up taking a receiver. Keenan Allen for a year does not stop you from taking Malik Neighbors at 4. But he's a very similar player to DJ Moore in a lot of ways. So maybe you don't love that. You want a different type of player. But sometimes, 2 of a good thing is a great thing. So that's definitely a possibility. Jets could go receiver. The Cardinals don't even let it happen. You have a bunch of top 100 picks. You have a bunch of teams in front of you that could consider a receiver, but might not go in that direction. For me here, I'm going to trade the Cardinals number 11, 66, and that might be enough. And it probably, as always, is like a late round pick swap. Maybe the Cardinals give up 162 to get 187 or something like that. But you really shouldn't have to trade all that much to jump a few teams here inside the top 10. I really don't think it would cost a ton. I think number 66 overall, even number 71 overall, and then that late round pick swap, I think that would be more than enough. I think that's fine. What does the actual trade value end up being? It's tough to speculate. We never really know because, the team would never do that. That's not enough, or that's way too much. Teams make bad trades that we criticize all the time, right? So I think just it's always kind of stupid to think about what the hypothetical return might be when doing these trades. I think it's more important that the team is trading up for a player they might really like rather than what the exact return has to be. And I've said that before. People have pushed back and say, oh, no, the return's super important. Yeah, it is in real life. Here in make-believe land, it doesn't really matter as much. Those are the details of the trade. And I'm going to have the Cardinals moving up for Malik Neighbors. Maybe he falls a little bit more than this. Maybe he doesn't fall at all. Here he's available at number 8. The Cardinals really need receiver. You're still able to get a tier 1 receiver. And again, maybe the guy they would have taken anyway at number 4. Yes, I'd probably lean Marvin Harrison Jr., but if they want more explosiveness in the receiver room, you lose Rondale Moore, you lose Hollywood Brown, you have Michael Wilson there. Neighbors gives you a ton of explosiveness and run after catch ability. Maybe they like that a little bit more than the Marvin Harrison Jr. just complete package. It's a possibility they get him here at number 8 instead of number 4, and you can't be mad about that from a player on the field standpoint. At number 9, have the Chicago Bears. The Bears here are always a tough team to pick for because you look at their picks and, man, they have almost none. 9, 75, 122 outside of the first pick. Now, it's good to have 2 top 10 picks in terms of draft capital, right? No one would argue that. But you got to fill out a roster. Got to have more picks in this to bring in a real draft class. How many times do you see a team end a draft with 4 draft picks? It's rare. It really is. So you'd think the Bears would be trying to move down, but it's easier said than done because it's not about, oh, what do you move down for? It's who's trading up for a guy. And we got to look at the best players available. Who would be moving up for a player? Well, last time I had the Bengals move up a ton for Brock Bowers. Maybe should have given the Bengals second round pick in that. I just do think it's a lot to move up, but it's also you're moving a long way, so I can understand that. Who are the available players is really worth a big trade up here, and it's tough to find one. It's really tough to find a trade up because Brock Bowers is a tight end. He's so good, but it's a less valuable position. Who moves up for a tight end? Because that's a luxury pick. Let's be real. Who's moving up all that way for a tight end? It's tough to find somebody. And I think we're going to end up sticking and picking here. And I'm going to have the Bears taking Byron Murphy, interior defensive lineman from Texas. Hook'em Horns ends up being the first defender off the board. And I don't think it's all that crazy. If he can go at number 12 overall comfortably, right, and we don't have any problem with that, he could end up being a top 10 pick to a team that really needs interior defensive line help. You know, the Bears go out and they make a ton of moves. Montez Sweat at the trade deadline, but you don't have a lot on that interior. Murphy gives you a ton of upside as a pass rusher and is already a really good run stopper. He's a great player and could end up being a top 10 pick. We're getting a little bit aggressive there, but I keep looking at all the different options and I try to decide who makes the most sense there. Murphy's kind of at the top of the list. It could be an edge rusher for sure. It could be Johnny Newton, right? But Murphy ends up being the pick there for me today. Jets at number 10. I really think they're going to go offensive line here. I really do. Brock Bowers is interesting. But with the Tyron Smith injury history, Morgan Moses is older as well. Do the Jets just decide to go tackle? And just not only do you get a good insurance policy, you get a good player for the future that you can develop. I think that just makes a ton of sense. I'm going to go to Lisa Fuanga here from Oregon State. Great player, really solid pass protector, but a mauler in the run game. Shorter arms might potentially push him inside a guard to the right team, but he didn't really have a problem in pass protection at Oregon State at all and was very good at the Senior Bowl and the one-on-ones as well. So pass protection on the perimeter might not be a problem for Talisa Fuanga there from Oregon State. Falcons at number 11. Well, you traded down, and who goes off the board that you may have drafted? It's tough to say. Would you have taken Neighbors? Potentially. Murphy? Probably not. Fuanga? Probably not. But here you are at 11. You could take your favorite edge rusher. They're all still available. Or you could take the first corner off the board, and that's also intriguing as well. And I think we're going to end up going with the first edge rusher off the board. And I'm going to push up Laiatu Latu. He's such a talented player. I always have him falling. What if he didn't fall? What if the medicals are completely fine and a team can get a Jalen Phillips-like player, very similar situation, at number 11? I think you do it. He's a great player. He's got the best hands in the draft. His pass rush plan is extremely developed. He shows that from his ability to not only execute that first move, but a counter move if the first one doesn't work. He's got so many different moves he can go to. He's such a polished player, and he's a pretty good athlete as well. I think he makes a ton of sense there at number 11. It's just injury stuff. He had to medically retire, but then was seemingly cleared by everybody else. The same UCLA team that would not let Jalen Phillips play, who ended up being a first-round pick, cleared Laiatu Latu, said he's fine. So he might just end up being the first edge rusher off the board. I think Dallas Turner to the right team is probably the first edge rusher off the board, first defender off the board, but maybe he isn't, and we mix it up today. Broncos at number 12. This is where I think you could start talking about a trade down. And I keep looking at it, man, and I think the Bengals still make so much sense to move up. The Colts, also very intriguing. Colts, though, they just really don't ever trade up, and I feel a little bit better about the Bengals moving up for this pick. So I'm going to go something here like 18, and I didn't trade 49 last time, but I think with the Broncos' late picks not having a second, the Bengals could definitely move 49, and maybe they get 121 back. So 1849 for 12 and 121. It's an interesting trade, and the Bengals move up for Brock Bowers. Plug and play, electric starting tight end. He can play in the slot. He can play in line. He's a very willing blocker and is especially electric with the football in his hands. I love this fit. Raiders are also one of those tough teams to pick for because we know these guys need a quarterback. Raiders, Broncos. Does a QB go at number 13 overall once these top four are gone? I don't know. And it's definitely a possibility, but with Antonio Pierce as the new head coach, defensive guy, of course, Giants legend, maybe he gets a defender in the mix, and I'm going to go with Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. Potentially CB1 in this draft. Very good athlete. And if you've looked at cornerback for the Raiders, it's a tough position. Quinyon Mitchell would instantly make things better, and he is the selection at number 13. Quarterback, you're going to figure out at some point. That isn't right now. Aiden O'Connell, not super stoked about that. Gardner Minshew, definitely not stoked about that. At the same time, you just might opt to go for a different guy other than a QB here. I've gone J.C. Latham, of course, before, but mixing it up today, except I just can't do it for the Saints. I just don't see how this isn't a tackle. Troy Fautanu from Washington ends up being the guy for me. Very, very good player. And thought maybe, is he long enough to stick a tackle? Maybe he moves into guard. 34-inch arms. That's definitely long enough to stay a tackle. And he ends up being the answer here at left tackle for the New Orleans Saints. Colts at 15. You didn't go ahead and trade up for Brock Bowers. Are you rewarded with that? Well, a corner goes off the board that you may have been very interested in. But you also could be very interested in a receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. Yes, there are other needs for the Colts. Their secondary is a bit of a mess. You could always go down in the trenches, get an actually good edge rusher in the mix. Dallas Turner still available. That'd be a lot of fun. Like, that's absolutely a possibility. However, Brian Thomas Jr. gives you a really nice, reliable number 2 receiver alongside Michael Pittman Jr., has tremendous speed, and it's tough for me to look at a receiver that played in the SEC, that is still a young player, who led the whole college football, whole FBS in touchdowns, that is 6'3", 209 pounds, and ran a 4.33 in the 40. There are too many things boosting him up. I think he ends up being a top 15 pick in the draft. Here he goes at number 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. Seahawks at 16, another team that's always tough to pick for. They're always really difficult here. The Eagles have been known to move up for their guys, and now they typically don't draft outside of these super, I would say, valuable positions, and it's mostly a lot of trenches. However, a super valuable position is corner, and they have a very bad group of corners. I think the Eagles could be incentivized to move up here. They've never been shy from trading up for their guy. They have multiple second-round picks. Maybe 22 and 53 could get you number 16 from Seattle and put you on the clock for Terrion Arnold from Alabama. Potentially CB1 in this draft. Really, really good player. And the Eagles just so desperately need help at that position. Feels like kind of the best compromise between best player available and position of need. The Jags could take a corner. The Broncos could still take a corner. Eagles Felt like a good time for them to move up. Seahawks are a team that certainly would not hesitate to move down. That's in the John Schneider GM DNA, if I remember correctly. Jags at number 17. I think they probably would have been a corner spot, which is why we make that move up. How do they pivot? Well, with Dallas Turner still available at number 17, that ends up being the pick. We don't need an edge rusher. Josh Allen's playing under the franchise tag. If he is not extended, you will need help on the edge, even with Trayvon Walker. K'Lavon Chaisson obviously did not end up panning out. You could use help on the edge. Yes, corner is a need. You could help out the interior of the offensive line. You could draft a receiver. Just felt like Dallas Turner was definitely the best player available. And big position of need. Just felt like, again, a perfect marriage there for both player and team. Broncos at 18. We're getting crazy. It's Bo Nix from Oregon. Bo Nix could even go higher than this. He just plays quarterback. It's the most valuable position. And he's the most experienced QB in college football history. Actually, he's most starts ever in college football. Wild. Bo Nix is someone who got better and better and better. He's accurate underneath. He was able to stretch the field at times, but it wasn't really a calling card of the Oregon offense. So, what do you have there? You got potential. And I think that could be a good fit for Sean Payton. I can't imagine that Jarrett Stidham is their week 1 quarterback. We will have to see, though. Bo Nix seems a bit early, but I'm going to try him outside or out in the top 20 here. Rams at number 19. I mean, the board really fell amazingly for them. And even though you need defense, Olu Fashion is available at 19. And that could be your just starting left tackle, cornerstone left tackle of the future. Verse, hard to pass on there. Johnny Newton, hard to pass on. But man, Olu Fashanu at number 19, you cannot pass on. As we get to the Steelers at 20, I think this might be Jackson Powers Johnson based on who is available. Plug and play starting center. It's what the Steelers need. Dolphins at 21. Johnny Newton. Do we just do that? I think we do. Johnny Newton ends up being your Christian Wilkins replacement. Christian Wilkins, of course, signed a big contract to go out to the Raiders. Because you're preparing to offer Tua Tagovailoa a massive contract extension to keep him in Miami, very much seems like it. You were not able to retain some of your best players, including Christian Wilkins, obviously. Now you get a replacement for him. He is a penetrating 3-tech like Christian Wilkins, lives in the backfield for Illinois. Great player, especially as a pass rusher. Seahawks, after the trade down, probably a little bit disappointed that Jackson Powers Johnson's off the board. Jared Verse is still available. That's really interesting. And I know you wouldn't look at the Seahawks and say edge is absolutely their biggest need. Sometimes teams just draft on best player available. Verse does feel like a Seahawks type edge defender. What do I mean by that? He's not light. He's not slim. He is built at 6'4", 260. Can set the edge. Improved a lot at doing that in 2023 and still has that pass rush upside with the powerful hands. He is a power rusher, and that's historically what the Seahawks love. I know Boye Mafe's in there. He's maybe a little slighter, Uchenna Nwosu. But if you look at the players that they've drafted, you look at to Auburn's edge last year, big Senior Bowl standout from Mobile, but I'm not sure that Derek Hall is going to stop you from drafting a player like Jared Verse at this spot, especially Mike McDonald coming in, maybe looking for a revamped pass rush. I think Verse just makes a ton of sense at this spot, and the only player I really considered was Graham Barton to play guard. I just think Jared Verse makes a little bit more sense for me there at 22. 23 with the Cardinals. Wow. You got Malik Neighbors at 8. You have 23. You have 27. J.C. Latham's on the board. Cooper DeJean is available. And the tackles have kind of fallen a bit more than they usually do for me. I think the Cardinals is a great spot to take J.C. Latham, right tackle from Alabama. Yes, before you say anything, I know they just signed an Alabama right tackle in Jonah Williams. I don't think that stops you from taking J.C. Latham for the future. It's just, again, maybe the best player available. Great value at 23. And Jonah Williams is a fine bridge player, right? And I don't know if he's in nursing homes playing bridge, but he's a fine like bridge to your next player at a position. You're trying to upgrade him is what I'm saying. He's a band-aid. JC Latham can be your right tackle, left tackle combo duo of the future with Paris Johnson Jr., who's expected to move over to left tackle. That is a great fit for me. And Latham, again, it's just, he's too good to not draft at this point, especially when the Cowboys might be drafting a tackle. In fact, I'm going to do that with Amarius Mims. Really great athlete, and the tape is good. It's just a small sample size, only about 8 games. Injury stuff, a little bit of a concern, but this is a team that knows how to develop offensive line talent. You look at how good Tyler Smith is, and he was considered to be a project. He's arguably the best left guard in the league right now. I wouldn't say it, but you can make an argument for it. He's very good, and Mims has unreal potential. You get him to the Cowboys, try him at left tackle. You could have something very special there. The size and athletic ability is not a question at all. Packers at 25. Man, Cooper DeJean is always available for me here, and it's going to be the pick again. I'm sorry if you're bored of it, but you shouldn't be. He's so great at his workout today, and only a month removed from being cleared for physical activity, he tested like a freak, which is not a surprise. If you've watched Cooper DeJean, that should not shock you. He is a great athlete. As I've said, he can stay on the boundary, but he could have even more impact as a nickelback or as a safety. So tempted to make a nickelback joke there, but you're talking about a slot corner. Cooper DeJean can be that guy. He can move back to safety. He can play on the outside at boundary or even field corner because he's fast. He can do a lot. Movement skills are great. Packers need help all over the secondary. Cooper DeJean is a great fit wherever the Packers want to play him. It's just way too good of a player to pass on at this point, in my opinion. Bucks at 26. Well, the edge rushers are off the board. Usually Laiatu Latu is available. I drafted him at 11. Very different for me. Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry both available. Graham Barton available. All of those guys make a ton of sense. I'm going to go Nate Wiggins. Tested like a super athlete, has CB1 potential. Not great as a run defender, but has island type potential as a cover corner. He can play by himself, leave him alone, let him take away a wide receiver one. He can be that guy. As the Cardinals are back on the clock, probably a little bit upset about DeJean Wiggins going back to back. Could have drafted, one of those guys at 23, opted for JC Latham. Now, how do you pivot? Well, tackle is solid for the future. Receiver. Double dipping could be super fun, but we're not going to do that. Graham Barton ends up being the pick for me, and why is that? I think he can play center or left guard. I know he got that Froholtz in there. I don't think that stops you from going Graham Barton. And now in the draft, you have made it a focus to build around Kyler Murray and the offense. You got him a big wide receiver one, and not in terms of overall size, but impact. You got him a starting right tackle. You got him a starting interior offensive lineman. All very good players and all maybe the best players available when they were drafted. Yes, the defense is not great, but you can boat race teams with this offense that we're building here in Arizona. Now, 2 rookie offensive linemen starting on the same team could be a little scary, but Latham doesn't necessarily have to play right away, right? Barton would be more likely the day one starter with their current personnel, and you're like, how do we take a first-round pick and not even get a starter? Why would we do that? The potential is enormous. Almost as enormous as JC Latham is himself. 6'6", 335 he's listed at. Might even be bigger than that. And I know their defense is a position, or so many positions of need on that defense. So many positions that need to be upgraded. But do I like Graham Barton more or Kool-Aid McKinstry at that pick? I settled for Graham Barton. And I don't know how many defensive players are worth that draft pick. Chop Robinson is very interesting. Maybe I should have opted to take an edge rusher, but I think Graham Barton is just, I feel good about him being a good pro. It's not a super great edge class. Could have gambled on the upside of Chop Robinson, which is enormous for sure, but there's a lot of volatility there. We'll have to see what ends up happening. Bills at 28. I just find this hard to believe that it won't be a receiver, and to me, Adonai Mitchell is going to be the best one available at this spot. Such a talented player. Good size, great route running ability, good hands. like Adonai Mitchell a lot, and he needs to be wide receiver 1 for this Bills offense after trading away Stephon Diggs. It was never going to change. It's been a receiver for me almost the entire mock draft cycle anyway. Lions at 29. Here's where things actually get a bit more interesting, because a lot of the players that I might typically draft to the Lions here at 29 are not available. So what do we do? Kool-Aid McKinstry is the obvious pick to upgrade your secondary, but maybe you take a chance on Chop Robinson because the upside is crazy. I know that's been Darius Robinson for me sometimes too. They're very different players. When I look at Aiden Hutchinson, he is your 3-down player. I know you have James Houston in the mix, but Chop Robinson has 3-down upside with obvious upside as a designated pass rusher right away. About 6'3", 250 with unreal explosiveness, and could be a double-digit sack guy if all goes well in his development. And I think the Lions are so good, you can take a chance on a developmental type player with tremendous upside. We saw how well Micah Parsons developed. Chop Robinson is a similar level of athlete, if you can even believe it, because Micah's a crazy athlete. Chop is up in that same level. He is unreal and raw as a pass rusher. Raw. But at 29, you take the chance, I think. Ravens at 30. I just always go tackle here, but it's become even more of a need with Morgan Moses being traded. I think we just got to go Tyler Guyton in that spot to play right tackle. Another super high upside guy. Really, really great athlete. And I think ends up being a pretty good selection for the Ravens at 30. 49ers at 31. I really would like to go offensive line, but a lot of these guys are going off the board. Do you take Jordan Morgan or Kingsley Suamataia? Maybe you just go corner. Offensive line is a position that needs to be upgraded, or a lot of them. Right tackle, potentially. Right guard, center, left guard, all could be, really. Aaron Banks, I probably like the most of that group. Obviously, we don't have to talk about Trent Williams, but John Feliciano, I know he graded well on PFF last year. I don't think that's a long-term solution for the 49ers, but the offensive line could be upgraded, but so could corner. We go Kool-Aid McKinstry there at 31 and look to upgrade the secondary. As we get to the Chiefs at 32, it's got to be a receiver. And I've gone Ladd McConkey here before. I've gone Keon Coleman. I've gone Xavier Worthy. I'm going to go Ladd McConkey today on the basis of him being maybe the best receiver available. I think that's kind of an easy call here. Ladd McConkey is a great route runner with great speed, very good body control and hands. He is a first-round talent at receiver in a stacked receiver class. You can make a conversation or an argument that Ladd McConkey is the 4th or 5th best receiver in this class. Here he's the 6th one off the board, but is very, very talented, very polished as a route runner, and very athletic. That's the mock draft. Got a little bit weird in this one, made some big trades. It was a ton of fun. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.